Quiet skyline. Crystal glasses. A red dress points like a dagger. Security. Remove him. Immediately. Chairs scrape. Whispers rise. The man in the gray hoodie doesn't move. He folds his arms. Calm. Present. Sir, you can wait by the bar, the boyfriend adds, smirking. VIP is for paying guests. A hush. Phones lift. A guard steps closer. The Metro D hesitates, then nods toward the couple. Let's not disturb our platinum members. The man in gray meets the guard's eyes. Steady, unblinking. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Laughter from the red dress. Then prove it. A server, trembling, whispers, "Please, sir." He exhales, slow, like someone measuring a storm. No anger. Only weight. Narration. Sometimes the richest person in the room looks like the least important, and sometimes the loudest voice is about to learn what silence can do before this night. Before the pointing fingers, the stares, the humiliation. He was just Eli Turner, a man who never cared about suits, spotlight, or applause. Just hard work. Quiet discipline. Results that spoke for him when people refused to. Eli grew up in the South Side. Not the version polished for tourism. The real streets. The ones that smell like survival and sound like people learning to dream through struggle. His mother worked double shifts at a nursing home. His father fixed engines until his hands cracked and bled every winter. Respect looks different on different men, his father had said once, wiping grease from his palms. Some show it with gold watches. Some show it by never quitting. Eli chose the second kind. College? He didn't have the money. Business school? Didn't need it. He read books while bussing tables. Took online courses between cleaning shifts. Built a delivery startup with $300 and a borrowed laptop. And when investors laughed, he learned to laugh louder, in silence, through performance, through growth. Now his company fed hundreds of families, and quietly, without announcing it. He bought the very restaurant they were standing in. But tonight, not even the staff recognized him. Tonight wasn't just any night. It was the restaurant's first elite tasting event under new ownership, a celebration, a test, and Eli had come quietly, anonymously, to see how people were treated when no one thought the boss was watching. He didn't expect fireworks. He didn't expect praise. But he never expected this level of audacity, and they had no idea whose dignity they were poking. Eli took a slow breath, steadying himself. He was used to being underestimated. His life had trained him for it. From running deliveries as a teen, to saving every penny from night shifts, to sleeping in his car outside business mentoring seminars because he couldn't afford the ticket. Every step of his journey was carved in quiet struggle and silent grit. Tonight, he wasn't here to flaunt wealth. He was here because he remembered what it felt like to be hungry. To walk into a nice place and feel like you didn't belong. He glanced around, servers moving fast, nervous about the VIP event. A young hostess, cheeks flushed, whispering to another employee, "I really hope we do well tonight. The new owner is strict but fair." Eli smiled faintly. If only she knew. Across the room, the couple kept glancing back at him, whispering, laughing, not knowing they'd just disrespected the man who signed their servers' paychecks and held the future of this restaurant in his hands. A storm was quietly forming. The manager hesitated, glancing between Eli and the couple. Pressure, eyes, whispering staff. VIP opening night. He chose the wrong side. "Sir, I'll have to move you," he murmured, tone tight and apologetic, but still enforcing prejudice. "You can sit by the kitchen until a regular table opens." Regular table. Not VIP. Not welcome. Eli looked at the empty tables, the sparkling glassware, the polished silver. Money couldn't buy class, and clearly neither could these two. He stood slowly, calm, composed, almost gracious. "Because when you know who you are, You don't need to shout it, of course, he replied softly. Lead the way, and with each step toward the back, he was quietly deciding how this night would rewrite their world. The room fell into a hush as Eli moved. Not embarrassed. Not defeated, just observing. Phones lowered. Staff stiffened. A few diners frowned, sensing something off, like watching a king disguised as a servant. The couple smirked. Victorious. They had no idea the joke was already turning on them. As Eli reached the back section, the couple raised their champagne glasses like they'd won a prize. Some people really think money buys them access anywhere. The man chuckled loudly. His partner smirked, eyes cold. Dress like poverty. Dine like poverty. A soft laugh. A clink of crystal. Their arrogance echoed through the room, unaware they were toasting their own humiliation. Eli sat at the small table near the kitchen doors, the one meant for walk-ins. Delivery drivers, people who didn't belong. A server nervously placed a menu in front of him. Her hands shook. She knew something felt wrong. She could feel the weight of injustice hanging in the air like a storm that hadn't broken yet. No violin swell. No dramatic gasp. Just quiet humiliation, served cold. The couple laughed again, loudly, performing for the room like cruelty was a talent. And yet, Eli didn't flinch. No rage, no bitterness spilling from his lips. No dramatic confrontation, just that calm expression, that unnerving stillness of a man who does not kneel to disrespect. Ever. He breathed deeply. He waited. He watched. Because when you've been poor, broken, ignored, and counted out, you learn patience sharper than any blade. A busboy rushed past, almost bumping him. "Sorry, sir." Eli nodded softly. "You're good." Even now, he treated staff with warmth. Even now, he chose dignity over ego, and that's what made the tables start turning. Slowly, silently, like fate rearranging itself. At the VIP table up front, the arrogance continued flowing. "Imagine thinking you can just sit anywhere," the man scoffed. He probably begged his way in. His partner leaned in, whispering loudly enough to be heard. "Some people just don't know their place." Her smile had thorns. Her beauty had poison. She judged the world from a throne built out of entitlement and insecurity. She'd soon learn that real power doesn't shout. It whispers. It reveals itself when silence feels dangerous. A soft beep sounded from the host stand. The moment the couple noticed, their expression shifted. They leaned forward, eager to show off they were VIP guests. "Is the new owner here yet?" the woman asked. "I want to thank him personally for this invite." A server smiled politely. "He's here." Their eyes glittered. Predators sensing praise, not knowing they'd already insulted the lion. "Where is he sitting?" "Right now." "Observing." The woman adjusted her diamond earring, smoothing her hair. "Good. When he sees how we handled that situation, he'll know we care about the restaurant's image." The server hesitated, swallowed, and then walked away fast, and because she knew the truth. And the truth was about to explode through this room like thunder through glass. Eli sat still. He watched chefs shout orders. He watched waiters hustle. He watched the privileged preen. 20 steps behind him, the kitchen roared with life. Steam, fire, knives, ambition. He had built this place so every plate carried pride, not fear. He didn't come to punish, he came to witness. To learn who respected the place he built and who only respected what they thought he owned. That's the difference between wealth and character. One can be bought, the other cannot. The room buzzed. People sensed a shift but couldn't name it, like birds feeling an earthquake seconds before the ground moves. A whisper drifted across the floor from a stunned busboy who had just heard the truth from the manager's headset. "The owner's already here." Heads turned. Forks paused. Eyes darted. Breaths hitched, because power, real power, doesn't announce itself. It reveals itself only when it is ready, and Eli was almost ready. He tapped his finger once on the table, a quiet signal of decision. Like a judge closing the file before speaking the verdict, no anger lived in his chest, just purpose, just a memory of every door ever slammed in his face, and his promise that anyone judged unfairly in his house would never stand alone again. "Excuse me, sir," a hostess approached, voice trembling. "Yes, they're asking if the owner wants to meet the VIP table now." He stood slowly, buttoned his simple jacket, gave her a small, knowing nod. "Let's go." He walked forward with the power of a man who had earned his throne every step paid for in sweat, sacrifice, and soul. A king didn't need a crown. Tonight, dignity was enough, and the room held its breath. Because Justice was walking toward the front. The couple saw him coming and straightened proudly, like royalty preparing for applause. The man smirked, raising his glass again. "Finally. Guess he's leaving," he whispered. Eli's steps were steady, measured, not hurried, not angry, just inevitable. Eyes followed him like planets orbiting gravity. Staff froze mid-pour, mid-stride, mid-breath. Even the chef peeked from the kitchen door, wiping flour from anxious palms. Eli stopped right in front of the couple's table. The woman crossed her legs elegantly, waiting for praise that would never come. "I hope you don't seat people like that here again," she said, gesturing toward the back. "Vibe matters in a luxury space, right?" Her tone, sugar on the surface, venom underneath. She thought she was helping. The manager hurried beside them, bowing slightly. "Sir, sorry for the disturbance. This couple was defending the image of our establishment." Eli raised one hand, silencing him without a word. A gesture so calm, so controlled. It made the room tremble. His eyes shifted to the couple. Dark, steady, not hostile, but ancient, with patience worn thin. "Tell me," Eli asked softly, "what does luxury look like to you?" A simple question, a loaded truth. The woman laughed lightly, nerves twitching beneath lipstick confidence. "Well, certainly not like that man you just moved. We thought you'd agree." And in that instant, she signed her fate without knowing it. The air thickened, like the room itself recognized karma arriving. Eli didn't blink, didn't smirk, didn't raise his voice. He simply leaned forward a fraction, eyes still gentle, which somehow made it far more terrifying. "So," he murmured, "luxury means treating people by appearance?" The man scoffed. "That's how life works. Money has standards." A few diners gasped softly, not at his words, but at the ignorance spilling out of a man who thought he was educated. The woman shrugged, smiling like a villain in pearls. "We were protecting the restaurant's image. You're welcome." Eli's gaze remained steady, soft, deadly. "That man you insulted," he said quietly. "What made him unworthy of this seat?" The couple exchanged glances, annoyed, not nervous. "Still clueless. Look at his clothes," the man snorted. He looked broke. Probably wandered in off the street. A ripple of discomfort spread through the room, servers shifting, guests swallowing guilt, the hum of whispered judgment dissolving into silence. "And if he was broke?" Eli asked, voice calm as winter water. "Does that make him less human?" The man rolled his eyes. "You're getting emotional." "We're practical. There's a difference." Eli exhaled slowly, like a mentor disappointed, not a king angered. "You know," he said softly, "when I was younger, I looked exactly like him. Same clothes, same shoes, same tired face." The couple froze. This wasn't the script they expected. He continued, "I walked into places like this, and people just like you laughed, judged, pushed me aside." He set his palm gently on the table, not forceful. "Just present. And I promised myself, if I ever built something—" No one would feel small here. The woman's smile faded. Something uneasy crawled into her eyes, a crack in her certainty. But the man snorted again, masking fear with pride. You talk like you own the place. Silence. Absolute. Electric. Then, Eli smiled. Slow. Sad. Powerful. I don't talk like I own it. He paused, letting time stretch until hearts thudded in throats. I talk like someone who earned it. A server in the back covered her mouth, tears in her eyes. A bartender stopped polishing a glass mid-motion. Even the head chef held his breath. Eli straightened his jacket, the humble jacket the couple mocked, and then he spoke the sentence that detonated the night. Because that man you insulted was me. The couple went pale. Shock struck like lightning. The restaurant erupted in stunned whispers. The room now knew the weight of the storm. And judgment, real judgment, had only just begun. For a full second, no one moved. No one breathed. Even the air felt stunned, like the room itself froze in disbelief. The couple's smug expressions collapsed into horror. Confusion. Embarrassed disbelief. The woman whispered, voice cracking. You're the owner? Eli didn't gloat, didn't smirk. He simply nodded once, quietly, like someone who never needed applause to know his worth. Yes, the woman's throat bobbed as she swallowed panic. The man's confidence shattered, his face turning a shade close to defeat. Mr. Williams, we didn't know. The man stammered. Eli raised a hand, gentle but firm, the same gesture he used when guiding teams. Not punishing them. You spoke honestly, he replied softly. And honesty shows character. The couple sat trapped in their own arrogance, their earlier pride turning into a cage. A server whispered to another, He came dressed humble, to see how people treat strangers. And one by one, heads nodded around the restaurant. People realized it too. Power wasn't in his clothes. Power was in his poise. Power was in kindness, delivered with spine, not weakness. Eli turned to the manager, voice respectful, but unyielding. When I hired leadership here, I asked for one rule above all. His eyes held the weight of experience, years of being judged, dismissed, underestimated. Treat every person with dignity. The manager's shoulders sank. He knew this wasn't a lecture. It was a mirror. And tonight, Eli continued, voice calm as steel wrapped in velvet, you failed that rule. Gasps, whispers, silence again. But I don't fire for ignorance. He paused. Only for refusing to grow? The manager's eyes widened, shame and relief mixing all at once. You will attend leadership training. And tomorrow, you will sit down with every staff member and listen to what dignity means to them. The manager nodded, trembling. The punishment wasn't humiliation. It was education, growth, accountability, and that was more powerful than anger ever could be. Eli turned back to the couple, their pride in ruins. This restaurant isn't for the wealthy, he said softly. It's for the respectful. A line that would live forever in whispers, in lessons, in hearts. Justice didn't roar tonight. It spoke calmly, firmly, unshakably, and the world listened. The couple sat frozen, eyes wet with panic, not because they'd been caught, but because they'd been seen, their arrogance naked, their character exposed. We didn't mean... The woman tried again. Her voice trembled now, a ghost of her earlier confidence. Eli lifted a hand gently. No excuses, a pause. Just reflection. He gestured to the server who had watched everything in fear. You see her? The couple nodded shakily. She started here washing dishes. Now she's assistant floor manager. He looked the couple in the eyes, not with anger, but with a teacher's patience. Greatness isn't worn, Eli whispered. It's earned. A pause so heavy the room leaned in. If you'd spoken to me with kindness, he added, you'd be dining here as my guests tonight. Their hearts dropped. A masterpiece of humility. Their own behavior the only blade that cut them. The room was silent again, but not from shock this time. From awakening, employees stood a little taller. Servers looked at Eli like he was something rare, a leader who led with dignity instead of ego. The couple, once peacocks of the room, now sat small, shrinking inside clothes that suddenly looked like costumes. Their luxury brand outfits couldn't save them from truth stripped of polish. The man finally spoke. Not proud, not loud, but with a breaking in his voice. We judged you, and we judged wrong. One sentence. But it cracked more than pride. It cracked a lifetime habit of seeing the world through hierarchy instead of humanity. A few guests nodded, some even whispering, I've done that too. Eli didn't nod. He didn't forgive instantly for applause. He let the discomfort breathe, because growth lives there. Then he spoke softly. Everyone gets judged at some point, but the real test isn't how you treat those above you. He looked right into the man's eyes. Level, unwavering. It's how you treat people when you think they can't give you anything. That line floated across the floor like a truth every person in the room felt as if whispered just for them. Servers swallowed emotion. A dishwasher peeked from the kitchen, hope flickering in his eyes. The hostess pressed a trembling hand against her chest, because they'd all been that unknown person once. Then Eli turned to his staff, voice strong, warm, steady. In this restaurant, we don't serve plates. A heartbeat. We serve dignity. A soft clap started, hesitant. Then building. Not applause for him, but for the principle he lifted. Even staff from the kitchen came out wiping hands on aprons. The sous chef teared up quietly. The bartender nodded fiercely, jaw clenched, like this moment meant everything. This wasn't just justice. It was culture. It was a reminder that greatness isn't loud. It's quiet strength, repeated daily. Then, to the couple, still shaken, Eli offered something unexpected. I won't ban you. I don't embarrass people for sport. A gentle inhale filled the room. But next time you walk into a place, any place, ask yourself one thing. Am I adding grace? Or subtracting it? They stared at him, overwhelmed. She whispered, tears in her lashes. We'll do better. He gave a single nod. Not approval, not victory. Permission for them to rise if they chose to. And then he ended it simply. Enjoy your evening. And treat every seat like a privilege, not a throne. He walked away, not as a king claiming land, but as a man reclaiming what dignity looks like in a world that's forgotten it. And the room didn't just breathe again. It reset. A new standard had been set. For respect, for humanity, for leadership, and no one present would ever forget it. The couple sat in stunned silence, their champagne untouched, their egos dismantled not by shouting, but by dignity sharper than any insult. And slowly, people in the room began to see themselves. A woman at the next table lowered her eyes, whispering to her husband, I judged him too. A businessman in a tailored suit swallowed hard, suddenly remembering the times he'd snapped at waiters, thinking power meant talking down. Instead of lifting up one by one, in small ways, the room was humbled, not by humiliation, but by example. That's the thing about true character. It doesn't need to raise its voice to raise the bar. Eli stepped aside into a quiet hallway, not to collect applause, but to collect himself. He exhaled, deep, long, tired, not tired from confrontation, but from memory. Of days he couldn't afford a meal but walked into restaurants like he belonged, just to feel human. Of nights he ate nothing but hope. Of mornings he told himself, one day I'll own a place where no one feels small. Tonight wasn't about ego. It was promise kept. He loosened his collar, rested against the wall, and whispered, not to the room, but to the younger version of himself who once washed dishes to survive. We made it. And nobody will ever eat dignity here. His eyes glimmered, not from sadness, but from gratitude carved through struggle. A soft voice approached. The young hostess, cheeks still flushed. Sir, the staff wanted to thank you. Eli smiled gently. Tell them I'm grateful for every one of them. She nodded, then hesitated. Sir, the couple asked if they can apologize to you personally. Eli paused. Not from anger, just considering the weight of forgiveness. Not tonight, he whispered. Let them sit with reflection first. Then, a small, steady smile. Growth begins in silence. And somewhere inside that dining room, two people quietly began theirs. The restaurant hummed again, but softly, lighter, different. Not because the drama passed, but because something inside everyone shifted, a collective alignment toward humanity. The couple sat still, cutlery untouched, faces flushed with the kind of regret that stays longer than embarrassment. Their hands were no longer touching. Their posture was no longer proud. They didn't look angry. They looked exposed, human, fallible, and sometimes that's where transformation starts. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Eli walked through the swinging doors, not seeking applause, just clarity. Chefs glanced up, freezers hummed, pots crackled. But a hush followed him. It wasn't fear. It was respect, the kind you can't demand, only earn. The head chef's voice broke the quiet. Sir, might I say, what you did out there? Eli lifted a gentle hand, smiling. No speeches. Just keep feeding people with heart. The chef nodded hard, like someone just given permission to lead with compassion instead of pressure. A dishwasher wiped his hands hurriedly and stepped forward. Sir, thank you. Eli paused, confused. For what? For not letting people like us be invisible. Those words hit deeper than any praise could. Because he remembered being invisible, too. Eli placed a hand over his heart, a silent promise that this place would always see the unseen. Back in the dining room, the couple finally stood, slow, unsure. They moved toward the exit, not fleeing, just humbled into quiet reflection. Halfway there, the woman paused. She glanced back at the small table where Eli had been forced to sit. Her jaw trembled. Her eyes lowered, not from shame alone, but realization, the kind that changes you. She whispered, barely audible, We were wrong. No one replied. No applause. No comfort. Just truth settling like dust after a storm. At the bar, a father whispered to his teenage son, Remember this. Always treat everyone like they matter. The son nodded, eyes wide. A lesson stamped into his core forever. Justice hadn't yelled tonight. It guided, it showed. It invited people upward, and in the quiet aftermath, dignity stood tallest. Not the richest, not the loudest. The kindest Eli re-entered the room just then, and the space didn't erupt. It softened, like welcoming a good light back in. He didn't look like a king. He looked like a man who knew his crown was carved from humility, not gold. And everyone there learned something tonight. Power isn't proven by who you put down, but who you lift. The couple left the restaurant quietly. No dramatic storm out, no muttered excuses, no dragging pride behind them like wounded armor. Just two human beings walking into the night with a truth heavier than their jewelry. That wealth without grace is just decoration on Emptiness. The door closed behind them with a soft chime, almost like the restaurant exhaled. But Eli, he didn't watch them go. He stood still, hands in pockets, eyes resting not on exit wounds but on the people still here, the staff, the guests, the hum of life. He wasn't savoring victory. He wasn't fueled by ego. He felt a quiet ache, because deep down, being disrespected never stops stinging, no matter how far you rise. And this night, though triumphant, had reopened a bruise from years of struggle, years of being looked over, looked down on, looked past. Success doesn't erase memory, it sharpens it. A young server approached timidly, barely 20, eyes nervous but bright. "Sir," Eli turned gently. "Yes?" She swallowed, then said, "I just wanted you to know, I've been homeless before, 2 years ago. I worked in a cafe where people treated me like I didn't exist." She wiped at her cheek. "Tonight I felt seen." Eli didn't rush to respond. He let her finish. Let her breathe. Let her reclaim dignity with voice instead of volume. "You're not here by accident," he said softly. "You earned your seat in this world." She nodded, holding her tears like delicate glass. And in that moment, he wasn't an owner. He wasn't wealthy. He wasn't a headline waiting to be written. He was someone who remembered pain and refused to pass it forward. Another worker stepped closer, the busboy from earlier, still in his apron, holding a dish towel like a shield. "Thank you," he whispered, eyes shining with relief, for standing up without screaming. Eli smiled. "Sometimes the quietest ones shake the room the most," the busboy exhaled deeply. Like a weight lifted from years of invisibility, guests began to approach too. Not crowding, not worshiping, just connecting. "Your speech, it reminded me to check myself," said one man in a suit. A woman added, "I teach my daughter about kindness, but tonight showed me I still have learning to do." Eli nodded each time, not collecting validation, but witnessing growth. And slowly the room shifted from tension to warmth, like winter giving way to spring. Quietly, inevitably. At the far corner, a stranger watched, older, dignified, eyes filled with something ancient and proud. He approached finally, cane tapping lightly against polished floor. "You handled that like a king," he murmured. Eli shook his head. "No, just like someone who remembers." The old man smiled knowingly. "Kings remember too. Good ones." Then he leaned in just slightly. "Power isn't tested when you rise. It's tested by how you treat those still climbing." Eli's heart tightened, not in pain, in recognition. He whispered back, "And no one climbs alone here." And so in that restaurant, beneath soft lights and hushed breath, justice didn't roar. It hummed. It glowed. It settled into hearts like a seed. Because real power isn't in proving you're somebody. It's in reminding others they are too. Word spread. Not instantly, but like truth always does. Quiet at first. Whispers. A retelling in hushed voices. "You won't believe what happened at that new high-end restaurant. The owner came dressed like anyone for days. The story lived like electricity in the air. Not gossip. Not drama. A lesson. People shared it in group chats, barbershops, offices, coffee lines. A man judged for his clothes. Turned out to own the place. He didn't fight them. He taught them. Dignity won. The world didn't clap loudly. It nodded quietly, because truth doesn't always need applause. Sometimes it just needs to be remembered. Soon, other business owners took notice. Restaurant blogs, leadership forums, even hospitality schools whispered his name. Eli Williams, The Silent Leadership Case Study. Articles titled, "Humility as Power, a Restaurant Owner's Lesson." How one man redefined luxury behavior. Kindness with a backbone, the real executive standard. His story traveled not through headlines, but through hearts. Because people were hungry, not for scandal, but for someone to prove that respect still mattered. Inside the restaurant, something even deeper happened. Employees worked with pride, not fear. They greeted guests not as servers, but as hosts of dignity. New training programs launched, not about performance, but about empathy, grace, and human worth. Applications poured in. People didn't say, "I want a job." They wrote, "I want to work in a place that leads like that." Competitors called to learn. Investment groups asked to meet. Even a hospitality university invited Eli to speak. He politely declined. Not out of arrogance, but because he believed you don't teach compassion in a lecture hall. You teach it in how you live. Meanwhile, the couple who had mocked him felt the weight of their actions long after the night ended. Not because anyone shamed them. Not because their names were exposed. Eli never allowed that, no. Their change happened inward. They returned a week later. No perfume-drenched confidence. No designer armor. They came in quietly, asked for a regular table, and sat with hands folded, eyes soft. When Eli stepped out, they stood, not afraid, but humbled. The woman spoke first, voice trembling with sincerity. "We've spent our lives thinking success meant standing above people." She swallowed hard. But that night showed us success means lifting them. Eli didn't boast. He didn't punish. He simply nodded, the same gentle nod he'd given the hostess that night, and said, "Growth isn't easy, but tonight, you chose it." They exhaled, not relieved, but changed. They didn't ask for a VIP seat. They didn't need one anymore. Later, as the evening wind brushed the windows and the lights dimmed, Eli stepped outside, hands in pockets, looking out over the city. He didn't feel victorious. He felt purposeful. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a movement, a standard, a reminder. True wealth isn't on the plate or in the clothes. It's in how you treat the person standing next to you. And somewhere, in a world often loud with ego, a quiet revolution of dignity continued to spread. One kind act, one humbled pride, one changed heart at a time. Time didn't dull the moment. It sharpened it. Because what happened that night wasn't just a restaurant story. It was a shift, and shifts don't fade. They spread. Business boom. Built not on hype, but heart within a month. Reservations tripled. Not because people wanted luxury food, but because they wanted luxury humanity. Travelers flew into town and asked, "Is this the restaurant where dignity is the dress code?" Some came in suits. Some came in hoodies. Some came in hand-me-down coats. Every single one was greeted the same. "Welcome, not do you belong? But we're glad you're here." The staff didn't just feel like workers now. They felt like ambassadors of respect. Even the most nervous new hires stood tall. Why? Because they weren't just serving plates. They were serving principle, and principle tastes better than any recipe. Investors knock, not for profit, but a philosophy investment firms reached out. Hospitality groups asked to franchise. A billionaire tried to buy shares. Eli turned down nearly every offer. When asked why, he simply said, "You can't franchise a soul unless every heart matches the mission." He wasn't building an empire of buildings. He was building an empire of behavior, and the world started paying attention. Universities plus business schools study the event Harvard case studies, Wharton leadership discussions, Stanford hospitality ethics panels. Students watched the footage, not of confrontation, but of calm power. Professors paused the screen when Eli lifted his hand and silenced the room. Leadership, they taught, isn't force. It's presence. Eli didn't teach words. He modeled values. A new generation of leaders took notes, real notes, heart notes. Articles spread, not viral drama. But viral wisdom headlines came: the night ego lost, wealth with grace, a new era of leadership. When the owner sat at the worst table, comment sections weren't messy. They were hopeful. Wish we had leaders like this at my job. I needed to see humanity still exists. Success doesn't change you. It reveals you. The story didn't spark outrage. It sparked reflection. That's much more dangerous and much more powerful. Employees rise, not out of luck, but because they were seen. The dishwasher enrolled in culinary school, paid by Eli quietly. The nervous hostess became floor manager, confident now. The busboy trained to become a chef. Eli didn't announce this. No press, no speeches, he simply saw people and lifted them. The greatest leaders don't create followers, they create leaders. And Eli created them everywhere he walked. The couple, private transformation, public humility, they returned often, not for privilege, but to learn. They sat at ordinary tables with ordinary people. They tipped big. They listened more than spoke. They donated to an organization for hospitality ethics training, not for reputation, for redemption. Sometimes, when first-time guests looked confused, they leaned over and whispered, "Treat everyone like they matter here. Trust us. It's better that way." Redemption's quiet voice is often louder than shame could ever be. The city changes. One restaurant at a time, establishments slowly shifted. Dress code softened. Greeting tone changed. VIP didn't mean very important people anymore. It meant very important principles. High-end spots trained staff not to judge appearance. Servers became leaders in kindness. A movement formed, not a loud one, but a gentle revolution. A chef put it best on TV. Luxury isn't exclusivity. Luxury is making people feel they belong. And suddenly, dignity became the new currency. And Eli? He remained. Eli not louder, not richer acting, not glowing from praise. He stayed humble, still walking his floor, still smiling lightly when someone didn't recognize him, still wiping a table when needed. Power hadn't changed him. Pain had taught him, and grace guided him. One night, closing time. A new waiter asked timidly, "Sir, how do you stay so calm when people treat you wrong?" Eli paused, remembering every door slammed in his face, every restaurant that made him invisible, every moment he swallowed hurt instead of hate. Then he said quietly, "Because storms don't scare me. I learned to dance in rain long before I could afford a roof." The young waiter blinked, not understanding fully yet. But one day he would, because wisdom ages like wine, and kindness ages like legacy. 1 year later, the restaurant didn't just thrive, it became a landmark of humility. Not for its chandeliers, not for its wine list, not for its Michelin plates, but for something most places had forgotten to serve: humanity. Reservations stretched months out. TV crews came, then left quietly, because this wasn't a spectacle. It was a sanctuary, a place where people breathed easier, where strangers greeted each other, where the host didn't look at shoes, only faces. And Heart's luxury? It didn't live in velvet here. It lived in how people were treated. A new initiative, and a quiet announcement on a crisp morning. Eli gathered his staff before opening. They stood in a semicircle, waiters, hosts, dishwashers, chefs, bussers. Some still wore uniforms. Others wore proud smiles. Eli placed his palms gently on the counter, voice steady, eyes warm. "Today marks 1 year since that night," he said softly. A silence settled, not heavy, but reverent. He continued, "I built this restaurant for food, but you built it for people." Eyes glistened, shoulders lifted. Pride, quiet and earned, traveled the room. Eli took a breath. And now, we expand. Gasps, smiles, whispers of joy. But Eli raised a gentle hand. Not more restaurants. Confusion formed. Then curiosity. We're building training academies for young workers in hospitality who come from humble backgrounds, for the kids who never get seen, for the ones who serve with heart but aren't taken seriously. A soft inhale rippled across the room. Not applause. Not celebration. Honor, because everyone there remembered the feeling of being unseen, and they knew. This wasn't about growth. It was about lifting people the world forgets. We start in neighborhoods like mine used to be, Eli added. Not in luxury districts, where opportunity is rare and dignity is priceless. The head chef clapped first, slow, respectful, not noisy, meaningful. Soon everyone joined, a chorus of gratitude, emotion, and purpose. Eli did not bow. He only nodded, humbled by a mission bigger than himself, and then an unexpected guest returned as staff dispersed. The front door opened. A familiar woman stepped in. The same one who once sneered at him in judgment, who had doubted his worth based on clothes, who had let ego speak before conscience. But she didn't walk like she once did. The heels remained, the luxury purse remained. But the persona? Gone. She approached slowly, holding a folder. Hand trembling, not from fear. From accountability, Mr. Williams, she said softly. No arrogance, no edge, just a human voice. I've spent a year learning and trying to be better. She set the folder down. Inside were applications, scholarships she personally funded for young hospitality, students from low-income neighborhoods, a list of names, stories, dreams. She looked up, eyes moist. No one forced me, she whispered. You didn't shame me. You didn't crush me. You let truth teach me. A pause. I came to... Thank you. Her voice cracked, not with sadness, but growth.